Welcome to the S.O.A.P Bible Study Series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We're working our way through the book of Genesis, and we're picking up in chapter 16 this time. We've done 15 chapters, and it seems like it's been forever, and it also seems like it's been really quick.
It's true, yeah, but we are motoring along.
Yeah.
I mean, we have gone through the creation of the world, the destruction of the world, and the repopulation of the world. So we've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 11 chapters take up, X amount of years.
2,000 years or something, right?
Right, and now we have pumped the brakes. And now we are going to follow a person and a main person for the rest of Genesis.
Yeah,
really.
basically from chapter 12 through chapter 50, the rest of the book, you've got four key people.
Right.
And then lots of other people, in there. But there are really four.
And they just happen to be relatives of each other.
Four generations of the same family.
Right.
And that's the bulk of the book,
That
really.
is. Yeah, and I think that's the purpose of the book. All right, so we're following a guy by the name of Abram. He's going to turn out to be Abraham. He's just not quite there yet. and he's been promised by God a number of promises. And even last week, God promised him, more children than dust on the earth.
Yeah.
And Abram's like, yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's great. We have no kids.
Right. But he trusts in God, and we ended with, and that was credited to him as righteousness last week.
Yeah.
So his wife is not able to have kids, so Sarai takes matters into her own hands, and she has Abram sleep with Hagar, who is her Egyptian servant.
So we know that Abram and Sarai had gone down into Egypt. Right? There was a little kerfuffle down there, and then they came back out, and it seems like Hagar came out with them. And so now what's interesting is that culturally, there's no problem with this. This happened. Right. This would have happened all the time.
Right.
And you don't see anywhere where God tells Abram, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That was absolutely wrong. How could you, marry this second woman or have a concubine?" God never really brings that up. And in fact, the baby that's born, God ends up blessing because he's still part of that umbrella of God said, "I will bless you with a biological son." Well, he is not going to be the covenant son, but he is Abram's biological son, and God blesses that.
Right. So I think last time we did an age check on Abram, he was 75.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out that he's 86 now.
Yep.
But Hagar becomes pregnant. Sarai gets a little jealous, and she forces Hagar to quit and run away.
Yeah.
So an angel of the Lord talks to her and convinces her to go back and return. Hagar returns. It gives birth to a son by the name of Ishmael. Yep. And again, Abram's like 86 now.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, when Abram is 99.
So we're moving really. So 75, 86, 99.
Yeah. God appears to Abram and says, I'm going to confirm my covenant and give you a multitude of descendants. You are going to be a father of multiple nations. And he has this whole list here. Yep. Your name is going to be Abraham. So finally, because I'm sure I've screwed it up a bunch of times, but now we can
finally call him Abraham.
Yeah. But kings will descend from him. I mean, imagine him. He's 99 years old.
And he has one son.
And he's been waiting for this for at least 20 years.
Yeah, right. But he still has only the one son, Ishmael, whom God has said is not going to be the heir.
Right. This is going to, and I'm going to leave it, we're just going to leave you hanging. It's going to be a perpetual covenant that's going to extend through your descendants and through their descendants, generation after generation.
Yeah.
God will be your God, talking to Abraham, and your descendants' God. I mean, this is our God who is talking there. There is a requirement, right? A conditional requirement of circumcision. Mm-hmm. So when the baby is 8 days old, whether that baby is born into your household or whether you bought that baby for money, otherwise it would be cut off from the people.
Yeah. So it's important that we understand that circumcision was not what brought them into the family, right? it's the sign of
this covenant, right?
the covenant, right? It's the sign of being. It's the visible sign that I am part of this covenant. But if you don't do it, then there's going to be a punishment.
Right.
Right. So it seems like there's two different things going on here. We have to be very careful. There are some churches and systems out there that say, like for today, because of one verse in First Peter, right? Baptism is the modern day circumcision, and if you're not baptized, then you're not you're not saved, or you're not part of the thing. We have to be really careful. Yep. That we don't go too far with applying symbolism to salvation. Okay.
So Abraham got a new name, so the wife gets a new name, so she is now Sarah. She's going to have a son. Abraham laughed about it, and God clarified it. Ishmael, like you said, he's going to be a great nation, but the covenant is coming through Sarah's son.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that?
Yep.
And he will be called Isaac. Mm-hmm. So Abraham had every male in the household, whether born into or paid for, had them circumcised. Mm-hmm. And then because you didn't ask, Abraham was uncircumcised too.
Yeah.
Right. So again, faithful, followed God.
Yep.
Yep. Anything?
And he's 99 years old at this point. Ishmael is 13. Okay, so we've got continuity, right? So Abraham has been waiting for 13 years, just assuming, well, I guess it's going to be Ishmael. And now God says, no, I never said that. It's going to be, Sarah's wife. Sarah is 10 years younger than Abraham.
Right, 90.
Yeah.
And she hasn't left yet, but that's coming up.
But that's the thing. And Isaac's name, you said he's going to be named Isaac, and Isaac's name means laughter. And that will be, you've talked about a perpetual covenant. Well, that'll be a perpetual reminder.
Yeah, that she laughed.
That they laughed at God.
Yeah.
Because, how could this possibly be?
Yeah. So in chapter 18, the Lord appears to Abraham, and Abraham looks up from his tent. So you had said before, all right, this guy's living in a tent. He's a nomad. That's what he's doing. He's a farmer or a herder.
Yeah.
And he saw three men, and he runs to them, and he bows low to the ground to them. And it seems like, it was the customs of the time, right? If there were people that came in, there were things that had to happen. They were taken care of. They were fed. They were supplied a place to stay, and safety, which is a huge part.
Well, so here's the other thing, though. Abraham has been walking with God, either figuratively or literally in some cases, and like this, for 24 years. Okay? What are the chances he doesn't recognize it at this point? I don't think this is just he saw three strangers wandering around the desert and said, oh, let me give you some water.
Right.
Right? They know each other. They're friends. And they literally, God came to have lunch with Abraham.
Yeah. Yeah. So he feeds them, right? There's water, there's the washing of the feet, there's a tender calf, and it seems like the calf had been previously prepared, but like we said, this guy's rich. There's always going to be a calf.
Yeah, there's food. There's constantly food being made, because when you're in the desert, he tells Sarah, he's like, whip up some bread, some fresh bread. You don't have time for it to proof and rise and everything. Yeah. But it's lunchtime. They're going to be having food, right?
Yeah. So after they ate, they talked, and God said, this time next year, Sarah will have a son. Sarah was listening. She laughs this time. And notice Sarah lies about it. Mm-hmm. And God calls her out on the lie.
What are you laughing about?
Oh, I didn't laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Yeah, don't lie to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this next section, God talks to God and Abraham. They talk about Sodom, and God says the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, these two cities, is so great, and their sin is so blatant that God had to come down and see it for himself.
Yeah.
And Abraham, they get into a discussion, and Abraham understands God's talking about destroying these cities. Yeah. And he knows Lot's in there, his nephew and family, and
and that's the thing is that there's no way that Abraham has not been keeping tabs on his nephew living.
Right.
He knows what's going on down there. He's a businessman. We already talked about the fact that he's the CEO, the president of this huge corporation, lots of employees. He's done business down there. The whole thing. He's been keeping tabs on Lot.
Right.
Right. He knows how bad it is down there. I think that he thinks that Lot has had a bigger impact than Lot has had.
like a bigger positive impact?
Bigger positive impact, right?
Yeah.
Because we find out in the next chapter that Lot seems to have some status in the city of Sodom.
Right.
So maybe he's made a good impact.
Yeah, but not so much.
Apparently not so much.
Yeah. So there's a discussion, if there's 100, people that are faithful, will you destroy the city? And then 50, and then
Just works all the way down.
down
right?
to what, 10?
10.
Yeah. And God destroys the city, so couldn't find 10?
Could not even find 10. They were only able to pull out, and again, we see this next
4.
time, they only pull 4 people out of the city who were
3.5.
even willing to come
Right.
almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I find it a humorous discussion, but it's a terrible time, right?
Well, yeah, but I think there's 2 really important things in this chapter. First of all, verse 17, God says, should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? So he looks at the angels, the other
Right.
2, and he's like, should I tell him? And I love that.
Yeah. How? Yeah.
Because his thing, his reasoning, God's reasoning, because not that we always get in the mind of God, but after all, Abraham is going to become a great and powerful nation, and all the nations on the earth will receive blessing through him. So we should let him in on, I should let him in on what's going on here, right? And Abraham's listening to God talk to angels about letting him in on future plans.
Right.
That's pretty cool. Just right
that
there,
is
right?
Really cool. That is really cool.
Secondly, we come to verse 25, and Abraham has not yet really begun the negotiation that you were talking about with God, but God says, "I'm going to destroy everybody down there. The whole area is going to be wiped out." And Abraham's like, "Whoa, hold on a second," and he says, "Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the godly with the wicked." Okay, that's number 1. He knows God's character. But then he asks this question: will not the judge of the whole earth do what is right? And I think that has been a defining question and answer as we think about when we have questions about the Bible, when we have questions about things going on in the world. How could God let something happen? Whatever.
Right.
Abraham's question was not, are you going to do what's right? Abraham's question was, of course you're going to do what's right. How could you do anything but what is right? So I know that you will not do this because that wouldn't be right.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought this part was interesting, and I meant to bring it up before, that Abraham and God seem to be taking the opposite sides.
Seems like it, right?
Where Abraham was like, no, you have to protect the good people.
Yeah.
And
And God's like, I'm going to kill them all.
right, which seems to be the opposite side.
But that's what's good. That's why
as a judge.
Abraham. Yeah, that's why Abraham is arguing so hard. There are godly people down there, so I know you're going to do what's right, which is exactly what God did. Right? He honored Abraham's request. If you find even 10, you'll save everybody. Right? Yes, I will. Couldn't find 10.
Yeah.
And so I was, so God judged everybody, but God always works through, not always, usually works through agents, either angels as agents or humans as agents. Abraham literally was interceding on behalf of these 5 kings and their cities that he, remember last time, went and beat. Those were the losers. These were the losers.
Right.
And Abraham rescued them, saved them, and now he's interceding and returned them. Yeah. And now he's interceding with God, negotiating with God for these people whom he had
never put all that together.
And God said they're wicked. God would have just let them, be right. Abraham saved them, and now Abraham's begging for their lives, and God you saved them once, you're not going to save them again. Yeah. Not this time. It's gotten worse since the last time.
Yeah, so chapter 19, what we end on this week, is not the greatest of chapters.
It's exactly what God is.
Yeah, well, but yeah. So Lot was sitting in Sodom's city gateway at evening time, and he's visited by two angels. And I think this goes with, so back in these times, you usually find the elders and business being conducted at the gates of the city.
Yeah.
So with Lot being there, he seemed to be an elder of the city.
Yeah, or even the people when the guys are at his, when we're not there yet, but when the guys are at his house, they say, get out of our way. This man came to live here as a foreigner, and now he dares to judge us. They know. I mean, he's got a position that they recognize, right?
Right. So he's visited by two angels. He encourages them to stay with him. So this is again Lot, two angels.
Yeah, the same two.
The same two guys. Right.
It's the same two because God sent them down in there. So these are the two that were just having lunch with Abraham yesterday.
Yeah. Well, now they're eating again.
They're having lunch with Lot now.
Lot prepares a feast for them. It's good to be an angel. So afterwards, all the men of Sodom surrounded their house. And they wanted Lot to send out these two men, not knowing they were angels, so that they could sexually assault them.
And it's possible that they did have some inclination that they were. It doesn't say that they didn't know that they were angels. There is a possibility that they knew that they were supernatural or that they were something. Yeah. Okay, we don't know that for sure. But if that's true, then this carries on this idea of people wanting what comes, this like before the flood, right? Angels and humans procreating, they wanted that connection with the supernatural. They wanted that connection with the gods. And their perverse sexuality, they were probably already down there. They were worshiping demons, and the paganism that was already there. They may have thought that this would be a really, really good thing for in their perverted thinking.
Right. Yeah. So the men outside, Lot offered to send his daughters out.
The daughters
That's a
of
hard
men,
one.
The daughters of men. It's like before the flood.
Yeah, right.
Right. There's some really interesting connections between chapter 19 and chapter 6 of what's going on here, and sexuality, perverse sexuality is a connection. Yeah.
So the men out, these guys were turning into a mob.
Yeah.
Right? Mob mentality. The angels strike them with a blindness, and they told Lot, look, now's the time. Mm-hmm. You got to get your relatives, and you got to get them out of the city because we are about to destroy them. Mm-hmm. So he went to his son-in-laws, and the son-in-laws thought it was a trick.
Yeah. So the daughters that come out of the city with him, they were engaged to be married, right? And apparently he doesn't even have a good enough reputation or a godly enough reputation with the guys who are going to marry his daughters. Yeah. When he says God is going to judge this place, they're not listening.
Right. So he leaves with his wife and his two daughters. He was told to run. There's some give and go. You need to go to the mountains. Can I go over here to the city? Sure. So they say, run, don't stop, and don't look behind you. So God starts raining down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. He overthrows those cities, including all the inhabitants of the cities. They also make a point to say the vegetation, the growth. So everything is dead there.
Which is exactly why Lot went down there to begin with, remember? Because it was lush and everything. Right. So this is why I pointed out last time, this is at the southeast side of the Dead Sea. It used to be this beautiful valley with all of this lush vegetation and everything. Right. Today you go down there, this is the Dead Sea is salt. The entire area has been salted and still doesn't grow. Right? And this is where Lot's wife, it's not that she was running and she turned back and looked and all of a sudden, poof, she's now, this statuesque type thing. She, as they're running, she lets go, she stops, and she gets caught up in the destruction. Right. Think of if God were to drop a salt bomb or, sulfur and everything, a bomb,
the
and
rolling.
It just goes out like that. That's what she's caught up in. Yeah. It's not like you could go there and see this little statue of Lot's wife like, whatever. Right. she's just caught up in this destruction.
There's a word there that I don't remember reading before, but Lot's wife looked back longingly, right?
Yeah.
So there was also a what we've lost. I love this place, even for how bad it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Well,
Then
I
she
mean,
was turned into a pillar
Well,
of salt.
last time we didn't know. I mean, it didn't say when Lot was traveling with Abraham that he was married yet. So if he wasn't, then she's probably from Sodom or she's from this area. The kids were born there. This is all they know. This is their family.
Yeah.
The in-laws are there. Everybody's there, right? So this is her home. This is her family. This is her life. This is her status. If he's actually one of the city elders or a judge at the gates, this is her status. This is everything.
Right, and that really goes into what happens next, too.
Yeah.
So the next day, Abraham sees the smoke rising. God had honored Abraham's request to remove Lot.
Yep.
Now what we find is, so Lot probably lost everything.
Yeah.
Right? Animals, everything.
Yeah.
Wife. He does not have any offspring.
Right.
His two daughters.
Well, he does, because he has the two
Well,
daughters.
sorry.
Yeah.
But nobody to take on the family name.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no sons,
males.
yeah.
So the two daughters at two different times get dad drunk, so that they will have sexual relationships with the daughters, so that they can have sons.
Yeah.
And that actually happens. So no sin there.
Well, yeah, but think of it from their perspective, right?
Right. We got to.
They're coming out. I mean, we already saw what the nature of the people were like. They're coming out of this pagan system, right?
Right.
This world view where they can do anything they want sexually, you know. Lot had just offered them, those two, to the guys,
Right.
right? So they didn't seem to have, you know, any problem with this. Now they're thinking this is the whole world they've known, right? Everybody in the region is dead as far as they know.
Right.
There's nobody left.
Right.
So if
The
you look at
logical
it from their
conclusion is
perspective,
we need
this
to
is
build humanity back up.
yeah.
Right.
This is what we have to
Right.
do. This is the smart way to go.
Right. Well, when I brought up any sin there, from the standpoint of the Mosaic law isn't in yet.
Nope.
So
Yeah. So is it a law-based thing? I mean, I don't know what the law was back then, you know, but culturally, it was the smart thing for them to do, right?
Right.
Is it sin? You know, incest, you know, with your dad, and you have to get. I mean, the fact that they had to get him drunk to do it means that they knew he probably wasn't going to do it
Right.
just by being asked, right? You know, he knows there's other people out there. He knows there's family. You know, I don't know what they know,
right.
right? Literally their entire world just went up in smoke.
Right. So what we do end up with is they do get pregnant, and they end up with the offspring that'll later become the Moabites and the Ammonites, who caused the Israelites
A lot of trouble. A lot of trouble
Right.
over the years.
right.
Which means that the Moabites and the Ammonites are distant relatives of the Israelites, right?
Right.
Israelites come from a few generations down from Abraham. Abraham is Lot's uncle. So we're talking, you know, distant cousins.
Right.
The most famous Moabite, pop quiz,
Nope.
Ruth. So Ruth comes back into the family and makes a connection from Moab back into Israel,
Yeah.
and becomes a close relative of David, and then a distant relative of Jesus, who is the one who brings everyone together.
Nice.
So
very
you
good.
can see a little bit of foreshadowing. You can see a little bit of,
Yeah.
this
It's amazing
coming,
how the
but
story
Yeah,
always comes
it's
together.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
All right. Great place to stop for this week.
Yep. So again, we're doing some ups and downs, some big wins, and some really, really big failures here. But Abraham is God's choice to bring a nation into this world, and then that nation is going to have a very special descendant, of course, Jesus, and he's the one that in the Abrahamic covenant, all families of the earth will be able to be blessed through a very specific descendant, and that's Jesus. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff here. But we did bring up some things that maybe you hadn't heard before, or some connections maybe you hadn't seen before. So if you have questions, be sure to ask. We'd love to answer those and tackle those with you. Share this, like it, subscribe to it, and we'll be back. We'll pick up here next time. We're almost halfway through the book.
Right.
And so it seems like we're going really
Trucking along.
fast. Yeah. Right. But we'll pick up here in chapter 20 and see a little bit more from Abraham's life next time.
Bye, everybody.